Namaskar. Welcome to one more episode of What Does This Data Say? Whenever you find yourself in a difficult situation, it is always good to have a look at history. Maybe this situation which you are in today must have occurred sometime in the past, maybe a year ago, or maybe tens of years ago, or even a century ago. If you have a look at history, you will find that there is always something to learn from it. Today I am going to talk of the year 2004. Now 2004 was a very special year. There were two important elections that I will talk of which were held in that year. One was the general election. At that time Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji was our Prime Minister, and the second one was for the state of Andhra Pradesh, where N.Chandrababu Naidu at that time was the Chief Minister. Both these gentlemen had done tremendous development for our country. In fact, at that time, the growth of Hyderabad was phenomenal under the leadership of Chandrababu Naidu. But as it happened, both these gentlemen lost the elections. And that was a very strange phenomena. Now, why did this happen? I am going to get into these details and then try to map it to the situation of 2022, in which UP today finds itself in a similar situation. So stay with me, as the data which has come out is very interesting. And why do I say that it is a strange phenomena? I have found that whenever the public is in distress or pain, their voting pattern is very different than normal years. When public distress is high, they just vote out the government. At that time, they don't look at how well the government has done or how much development has happened. They vote against the government. So what I am going to essentially do is try to estimate the number of people who were distressed in 2004 and compare it with 2022. We all know that due to the pandemic, there is a much larger number of people affected. But if a smaller number in 2004 could vote out two major governments, then such a large number of people who are affected, will they continue with the same governments? The data of corona deaths in our country has been questioned by many people. Now, I will use some other sources as well to try to estimate the actual number of deaths in the country. I never question the government data or statistics, but I do corroborate with other sources. And then if these other sources do not match with the government data, the aberrations become very clear for you to see. So let's start with a recap about the corona deaths in Uttar Pradesh. For this purpose, I am going to refer to this report, which is called The State Finances, a Study of Budgets, which has been released by Reserve Bank of India in November 2021. I am going to take the data from page 34 of this report, which is called the State/Union Territory Wise COVID-19 Impact and Vaccination Progress as on October 31, 2021. This is good enough for our analysis. Now I am going to show you a graph, and you can look at it little carefully. This is the graph which I have plotted using the same data. The population in the state, which is the brown lines. The blue zigzag line here represents the percentage of population affected by the corona pandemic. UP has the highest population in India, about 23 crores, and yet the number of people affected there, according to our government data, is less than 1%. In the same line is Bihar, Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, all around 1% or less. The maximum affected people have been documented by Kerala, which is around 14%, 15%. Delhi also saw a case load of about 7% of the population. There are smaller states which had reported higher figures, but for this study, because the population is less, I am neglecting those. So, on an average, India saw, or documented rather, a caseload of about 2%. Now I am going to show you the same graph but from United States. Have a look at the data distribution. I have plotted the states as per their population and the percentage of people who were affected by corona. California, which is the highest population state of having a population of about 40 million, there the people affected were around 14.5%. Most of the states, if you see the median line, the rate of people being affected hovers around 14%. There are a few dips here and there, but they are very small states like Puerto Rico, which is outside the US, and Hawaii, etc. But in the mainland, all across, the caseload was more than 14%, highest going up to 22 or 25%. Even though Trump may not have put his photograph on the corona vaccine certificate, but definitely I think their data collection has been far better than ours. Now I am going to do a quick small calculation. I am going to take the infection rates of US and Kerala and try to estimate how many people in UP and in India would have got infected, and further how many would have died. Kerala infection rate I have taken at 14%, US infection rate at 16%. India population 136 crore, UP population 23 crores. At that rate, UP should have seen infections around 3.5 crore people, and on an all India basis, from 19 to 21 crore people should have got infected. The mortality rate of COVID infections in our country was 2% according to government sources. Applying the 2% mortality rate, UP should have seen between 6.5 to 7.5 lakh COVID related deaths, while on an all India basis we should have seen above 40 lakh people dying from this pandemic. Yet till date, on February 14th, when I am doing this recording, the government data shows we had about 4.26 confirmed cases of COVID and deaths only around 5 lakhs. And on the same day, Uttar Pradesh shows confirmed cases of 20.58 lakhs, deaths only 23,398. There are a lot of news reports and media reports about India underestimating its COVID deaths. I'm not going to present them. However, I was trying to search for a scientific paper on this, and I have found one which I'm going to just leave it as a reference. This is from the Center for Global Development. 3 new estimates of India's all-cause excess mortality during COVID-19 pandemic. And this has been written by Abhishek Anand, Justin Sandford and Arvind Subramaniam. Abhishek Anand is from the World Bank. He is an ex-civil servant and has worked extensively on this subject. You can see a lot of his tweets. India COVID deaths are 10 times higher than reported. Then we have Justin Sandford, who is the director for Center for Global Development, and he had earlier worked with the Tanzanian government. And finally, Arvind Subramaniam, well-known figure. He is the Indian economist and former chief economic advisor to the government of India, having served with the Modi government from 2014 to 2018. In his position, I believe that he would have got access to much of the needed data for making this report. Very in-depth paper, and I'll just quote you 3 paragraphs out of this paper. The first one is they say there is considerable uncertainty within and across the estimates. They range from about 1 million to 6 million overall, with central estimates varying between 3.4 to 4.9 million, which is 34 lakhs to 49 lakh people who would have died. They also say that research in this area should continue and the government should aid their effort by making available all the data on the serosurveys and deaths. The second point is very interesting. Have a look. They say the first wave seems to have been more lethal than is popularly believed. Because it was spread out in time and space, unlike the sudden and concentrated surge of the second wave, mortality in the first wave appeared moderate, but the data which is there in the civil registration system suggests that up to 2 million might have died in that period. 20 lakh people died in the first wave and we did not take cognizance. I'll conclude this section by showing the summary. They finally come out saying that true deaths are likely to be several millions and not hundreds of thousands, making this arguably India's worst human tragedy since the partition and independence. So this is the public distress I have been talking about. It is way above than what was there in 2004. Public memory, people say, is short, but it is not that short that they don't remember. And whenever there is public distress, as I told you, governments fall. So let's have a look at what happened in 2004. So a quick recap of the political events that took place in 2004. At that time, Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji was our Prime Minister. He had just completed his 5-year term. The economy had really picked up during the last 2 years of his being in office. Before that, there was some downturn. There was political stability all around. Kargil war and its aftermath was handled very well by the NDA-1 government. There was a positive vibe all around the country regarding the Kargil war. Many national projects were initiated by the NDA-1 government, the famous Golden Quadrilateral and the PSU disinvestment he had started. The NDA-1 in general had a clean government image. But then he lost the election. The Indian National Congress returned to power after a record 8 years out of office. Congress put together a comfortable majority along with its allies and could show more than 335 out of 443 members of the Lok Sabha. Manmohan Singh became the Prime Minister of the UPA-1 government. Even after the polls, none of the exit polls could predict that UPA is going to come to power. All the major exit poll people had all predicted a hands-down victory for the NDA government. Market research agencies in our country seldom reach the far-off places and below the poverty line section of the population. This is what the analysis of the exit polls showed. I think much of this is still going to be found to be true even today. The tables in the Lok Sabha totally turned. The NDA, which had got 291 seats in 99, landed up getting almost 100 less at 189 in 2004. The gain was that of the UPA. The others in the House always see an opportunity to support the government in power. So both of them had comfortable majorities in their respective elections. Now a look at Andhra Pradesh in 2004. Chandrababu Naidu was well in command in the state. In fact, the economy was doing so well, it was clocking 13% and above for several years together. He was instrumental in making Hyderabad the preferred IT hub. He even got Bill Clinton to come down and inaugurate the high-tech city. He liked himself to be called a CEO because he thought he worked with the industry-like efficiency. He created massive infrastructure and changed the total landscape of Hyderabad. The major projects he initiated was the new airport at Shamshabad, the outer ring road of Hyderabad, and several other expressways he had started to build. He was so confident that he will win this election that he preponed his own election to coincide with that of the general election, and he thought he will ride the wave along with the BJP, who was his NDA partner at that time. But things went horribly wrong for the Telugu Desam party and the BJP in the state. In 99, TDP had won a massive mandate of 180 seats in the 294 member assembly. In 2000, they were reduced to just 47. BJP too lost from 12 seats and came down to just 2 seats. The UPA won with a huge majority, and Y. Rajshekhar Reddy became the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh. Also, the TRS for the first time opened its account and won all the 26 seats in the Telangana area of Andhra Pradesh. What both Atalji and Chandrababu Naidu forgot to see was this data. This is the All India Summer Monsoon Rainfall data compiled by the India Met Department from 1871 to 2017. Have a look at this area, which is the around 2000. If you see, all the green lines as well as the red lines are below the average. We had bad rainfall consecutively for 5 to 6 years. In fact, 2002 and 2004 were declared as drought years when the rainfall went below the normal 10%. 2002 was a massive drought year with the rainfall being less than 20% all around the country. This led to a major farmer distress in the country, which was going unnoticed by the political parties. India's GDP in 2000 fell to around 3.5% from the previous year when it clocked over 8%. This was due to the stress on the farming sector. For the next 3 years, the GDP remained subdued at 3 to 4%. It then again picked up in 2003 and 4. Just look at the red curve here, which I am showing. That is the GDP growth rate, which has been depicted in this graph. There is a strong similarity and resemblance of the GDP growth rates in those years and what it is today. The GDP again started falling here in 2017 and came down much before the pandemic, when it went really down to minus 8%. It has since then started coming up. The trend remained the same, up, down and up. In 2002, because of the drought, the stress on the farm sector became very high, and the number of suicides went up drastically. Have a look at this graph. The green line shows the percentage of suicides in the farming sector compared to the all India values. 40% of the people that year who committed suicide were from the farming sector. Compare the suicide data with today. The segment of people who are under stress now are different. I have dealt with this in my last episode, so I will not elaborate. It is the daily wagers and the self-employed businessmen, traders and vendors who constitute 43% of the total suicides committed in the country. And this is what Chandrababu Naidu missed. Look at the steep increase in farmer suicides in 2004 in Andhra Pradesh. From being a few hundred the previous year, it went into thousands. More than thousands farmers committed suicide. The coastal Andhra, Rayalaseema and Telangana are the 3 regions of Andhra. Telangana constituted almost 67% of the total suicides committed in the state. It was no surprise then that the Telangana Rashtriya Samiti won all the seats in the Telangana region. Public distress in Uttar Pradesh does not come from the farm segment. Neither was there any distress in 2005, as this graph shows. They hovered around a 4% average over the years, and it came down to 3% because of creation of Uttarakhand. And even today in 2016, the average numbers remain the same, around 3.5 to 4%. So farmer issue or farmer suicide issue is not a matter of concern. So in Uttar Pradesh, what is the concern? I had shown you the figures earlier. The major concern in Uttar Pradesh remains the people affected by the deaths of their family members due to the corona pandemic. By conservative estimates, there are about 6 to 7 lakh people who must have died. The official figures are miserably low. Now, these people, are they going to affect the polls? That we will know when the results are declared. But history shows that whenever there is a distress or public distress, governments change irrespective of their performance. So that is all for this week. We'll meet you again next week with some other information. Till then, Namaskar.